It's time for Show Me the Franchise.
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
It's time for Show Me the Franchise.
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
Welcome to Show Me the Franchise, the podcast that talks about franchises of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, genres, and types. I am one of your hosts, Tom Stadler, here as usual with the director of this secret agency that we have going here, Mr. Fred Dakin.
That's Dakin. James Dakin.
James Dakin.
Frederick James Dakin.
Oh, okay.
Frederick James Dakin III.
I didn't even pick up on the fact you got a little James in your name.
I thought about dropping the Frederick for a while.
Oh?
I had a Facebook when I was playing music, and I was James Dakin.
James Dakin. Actually, that does kind of have a... It's like James Dean almost.
Mm-hmm.
I like
James Taylor.
James Taylor, James Bond?
There it is.
Indeed. Fred, I'm very excited for this week. I'm always excited for our episodes. I think I've always said, we've got a great episode, or this is going to be one of our best. But I love this topic we're about to talk about, and that is James Bond. And specifically, it is the original, the OG, if you will, the original.
Oh, a little accent.
I'm going to use my terrible Connery.
Oh, we found an accent that stumps Tom a little.
Sean Connery, not my strongest, but we are going to be talking today about the Sean Connery James Bond movies.
Yes, and this is a episode that's 9 months in the making.
Yes. We had this one lined up, even with our guest who is here today, who we are very thankful for being patient as we work through a lot of big life changes and a lot of like very scary, important, big life changes. So here on the podcast is Tony. Is it Tenaglia?
Tenaglia, you nailed it.
Yes,
You nailed it.
yes, I knew it. I felt like I don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah, there's a G in there, and
Yeah.
there's everybody up, honestly.
Well, Tony, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. So you are the one that actually pitched us Bond, so I jumped at it once you did.
Yeah, no, you recommended, you asked me what franchises I would like to utilize, and I mean, what's better than a 25 film franchise like James Bond?
Which, I mean, in itself, it's like if we tried to talk about all 25 films today, I think we'd be here until the sun comes up.
It'd be a rough one.
It would be.
I think that's a whole weekend project, if you ask me.
Yeah, but I think you picking on, I'm not picking on it because I
Don't pick on it.
I would never pick on Sean.
And honestly, yeah, I think, but choosing Sean Connery as the original Bond in the canonized franchise. We'll talk a little bit about that today, but I think it's a very inspired choice, and I'm very curious. What is your experience with James Bond?
Experience with James Bond. Okay, let me start from the beginning.
Yes, please.
Well, first off, I wasn't born during the Sean Connery times.
Okay.
If I had to say anything, I think I was born during the Daltons, and I grew up during the Brosnans. But I didn't want to watch a single one of them.
No.
I was not a fan of spy movies. I was more or less into comedy or even into like animation, something to draw my eye. But the more I grew up, the more I wanted to appreciate film. James Bond just sang to me.
Good.
Especially with the Daniel Craigs.
Yeah.
Daniel Craigs, I mean, you think about old Bonds with Roger Moore and Brosnan, a lot campier. And Daniel Craig really brought it into like a spy movie. But then you want to look back and see where it all originated. And that's where you just kind of go in, start from the beginning, work your way through. And damn, Sean Connery kills James Bond. He is I would say, he set it up. He set up James Bond to be the franchise it is today.
No, certainly I don't know that you can imagine the Bond franchise being what it is without having Connery kind of setting the tone at first, whether or not he's your favorite Bond. And we might talk a little bit about that. I'm looking at one person in particular right now.
What? Me?
we don't have to litigate it yet about your favorite Bonds, but I think it's undeniable that at least Sean Connery made this franchise.
Yeah, I think there's something to say about setting the template for something that everyone, all the Bonds after him, pulled from in some way.
Yes.
And the funny thing is he's Scottish. He's not even British.
Right. Which I don't know. Does that bother you guys when you hear that Scottish accent coming?
No.
And I'll ask about Sean Connery in general for any of his movies.
I think he tries to tone it down in most of his movies. He tones it down in the Bond movies for sure. He's trying to be the British agent, but it always sneaks through. I mean, how can you fight your own voice?
I think we're all less particular than like English people who are just mad jelly.
Yeah.
You know, like sipping their tea, you know, living in like Yorkshire. Like, I think Bond actually should be from the Royal UK, you know, not the side islands.
The lower provinces of United
They call them the lowlands for a reason, you know.
Isn't Scotland the Highlands?
Oh, whatever, man. Well, there's probably a high and a lowland of Scotland.
I'm sure they're hills.
Yeah, Millland.
The hills are alive, y'all, with the sound of Scottish people. But no, I mean that's pretty great. So was Casino Royale kind of your entry point then?
Yes, I would say Casino Royale was the entry. I don't even think I finished the Brosnans yet.
Oh,
I haven't
wow.
even finished the Brosnans. But don't worry, I'm working on it, everybody. But you know, Casino Royale really kicked it off. Just for being like the tone it sets
Yes.
for a James Bond film, just draws you in. And who are the guys that do the Daniel Craig's, the brothers?
Oh, the directors?
Yeah.
Well, so Sam Mendes did Skyfall and Spectre. I know that. I was trying to remember who
I
directed
can't think of
Casino
the guy
Royale.
who does like GoldenEye, but also did Casino Royale. Which
Is it
always
the same
blows my
director?
mind. It's the same director,
Oh,
which
nice.
is so crazy to think about because they're very different. I think it's like I want to say like a Marshall or something.
Oh, Martin Campbell.
Martin Campbell.
Who other works that you may know that he did was The Mask of Zorro.
Ooh, love the Mask of
Oh.
Zorro.
And he did Vertical Limit, which that was a big 90s movie for those who are not.
He's coming out this year with the Daisy Ridley movie that I kind of want to check out, The Cleaner.
Oh,
With like Daisy Ridley, Pierce Brosnan, I think, is in it too. Who is also in The Foreigner that he directed, which is the Jackie Chan Taken movie.
Yes.
But yeah, The Cleaner's like her and Clive Owen. So Martin Campbell, the guy can cook. I don't think there's a recent movie of his I haven't liked. I liked all his kind of new action movies.
Yeah. But it's definitely it's a great entry point, I think, for anybody who, I mean, because every generation has their Bond, right? And so, yeah, for us, I think you grow up with Pierce Brosnan, but I guess, and I can maybe start speaking to my experience too, which it kind of began during the Brosnan era. And I think, so long story short, but basically, I mean, this is sort of an origin story for Tom the person, to be honest, because James Bond was something that I was introduced to back during middle school. I had met some friends doing a talent show, and they had done home movies, and they were like, we should make a movie after we got done doing the talent show. And I was like, well, what kind of movies do you guys like to make? And they're like, oh, we like to make James Bond movies. And they're like, because they were big fans of GoldenEye, the game.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they watched, obviously,
Like,
GoldenEye.
let's
and-
be honest.
Right. Yeah. I mean, GoldenEye was a staple, right? And Tomorrow Never Dies was pretty big at the time. And so anyway, I was like, well, okay, cool. Like, we can definitely make some Bond movies. Like, why not? I'm like, and I had never really watched any Bond. So I started kind of like going to Blockbuster and renting them all. And that's when I began my whole journey. And then, and now today I've seen every single Bond movie that has been released. And I became obsessed. We made a whole bunch of these home movies, like these Bond movies that are on YouTube.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to share those necessarily.
What? They're not going to be. You're going to put. What about the Patreon?
I mean, yeah, I'll put them on the Patreon. There you go.
There we go. $1 a month. Subscribe to the Patreon and see some independent film
Yeah, it's not good film, but it was fun to do at the time. But anyway, so James Bond kind of began there. So yeah, I started getting introduced to Brosnan, and I was like, oh, he's really good. But then when Daniel Craig came along, I was like, oh, this kind of feels like what Bond is supposed to be in a way. And then I sort of I think now I identify with Daniel Craig as our Bond, even though it's sort of he came in 2006. So it's, I don't know. You love a lot of love for Pierce. I think he's a fine actor. His movies outside of GoldenEye are not great. So, but I mean, going back to the start, I did love Sean Connery. So I think still he might be my favorite, but I know it's, like I said, maybe not everyone's favorite. So Fred, I'm curious, what is your journey with Bond?
So it was ever present in my household because my dad, I think he probably considered himself a bit of a James Bond type. I know he was in the Air Force or some sort of air military, but couldn't fly. It was because he was a sprinter. And they wanted someone for their sprinting team. So I think he went through the basic training of all. Actually lived in Japan for a while. Was a black belt. And the dude, he went into just working in business. I'm not exactly sure what he did.
Are you sure he wasn't a secret agent?
Well, here's the thing. He drove a Jaguar. He wore a lot of khaki and tight polos.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a black Jaguar, the one you would picture in a James Bond movie with tan leather seats.
Sounds like a poor man's James Bond.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll say that I'll raise your video on Patreon. I'll post a picture of my deceased father. And I'll say he definitely, I'm not saying my dad was a lot like James Bond. I'm saying the guy probably emulated James Bond.
Sure.
For sure. And he, they were also kind of a loophole movie. Most old movies were when you live in a household where you can only watch movies PG and lower.
Sure.
Yes.
And most James Bond movies are PG, but they're pretty intense because that was before the rating system was a little more skewed. That was, pre-Temple of Doom, Goonies, whatever the one they say is the one that changed things.
I think it was Temple of Doom, yeah.
Gotcha. So I remember growing up watching them. I remember even having a weird freak out moment when I got older, kind of like a Mandela effect just personally, where I remember watching a Pierce Brosnan one and thinking that it was a Timothy Dalton one, and then later in life watching it and realizing that it was Pierce Brosnan and not Timothy Dalton. So that's how in my like Star Wars, it was in the household, and there was never a time where I remember someone saying, check out James Bond. It was always there. Indiana Jones, I had that experience, which I've talked about on this pod, going to the theme park and then my dad being like, you like that ride? Well, there's 3 movies of this. Yeah. And it's played by Han Solo. I just what are we doing at this theme park right now? Why aren't we at home watching this? But so James Bond, I watched them all. He was always definitely a Connery and a Roger Moore guy. And I felt he liked Pierce, but he definitely, I think he felt similar to, I think, how Sean Connery and Roger Moore talked about it. They thought they kind of put too much humanization into Bond in the later films, which I do click with. Yes. But I will say, since I watch these movies all the time, I love James Bond. I do like Sean Connery. He's probably my favorite actor of the group.
Okay.
But as far as the movies, and if that was how I was ranking them, since we're not ranking Bond today, I'll just say now, I'd probably do Roger Moore.
I knew it.
I would then do Daniel Craig, and then I would probably do Timothy Dalton.
Oh, no way.
Because I just love me some TD. And then I would do Connery, and then, Lazenby, But that does, like I said, that's still probably my favorite actor of the group. And I still, like I said, I give him a lot of credit for setting the template. But when I go back, when I reach for a movie I want to watch, I forgot I didn't even add Brosnan in that mix, did I? I put him right after Craig.
Yes.
Because that was my Bond. Those were the movies coming out. The first Bond movie I saw was Die Another Day. I think that movie's super fun. Did I say it was good? No. But no. And Tomorrow Never Dies? People weaponizing the media to get rich?
I mean,
Ages pretty well.
Ages like fine wine. But yeah, so Bond has been around and entrenched, and I've definitely kind of come around to having my own relationship with it, but it was because it was always there for me.
Sure.
I wish I had that. I wish I because I came into it later in my life, and I mean, I had a much more appreciation for it because I started from the beginning and worked my way through. Stopped at Brosnan, but I just found such an appreciation to like what they were to what Craig's are today.
Yeah. And why do you guys think Bond has persevered? And I mean, it is like an institution now, right? And it's like damn near like in the way that I think Superman is like America's like hero, right? Like James Bond is kind of like the UK hero, right? Like he's like the iconic character,
Correct.
right?
Because it has, I would have to say, because it has some sort of truth to it. Like as much as it is campy and can be unreal, it has. There is MI6.
Yep.
Ian Fleming does say that he met James Bond, and I mean, as much as the movies do get out of control, like you can see a character go through these, and I mean, he's super cool. I mean, he plays it super cool.
I mean, it's true. I think there's less grounded movies as time goes on. And
100%.
I that's kind of my question here, because I think I have a moment I can pinpoint when the series kind of does the shark jump of sorts of, and I think it does happen during the Connery era.
Okay.
But
Can I guess?
yes.
Is it Thunderball? I mean, a jetpack in a movie.
Yeah.
60s movie.
And the car that shoots the water, and the guys are tripping like, whoa!
Let me hold my thought on that. I'll put a
Okay.
pin in that.
Pin in.
But a lot of what's cool about the gadgets that get used, as unbelievable as they are all, I think, functional. Even the little helicopter that he builds in You Only Live Twice, I believe, is a fully functioning helicopter that somebody built. And like, I always thought that was like the coolest thing, is that they actually had these inspired like ideas that like they could give him a real functioning machine, and to the point where they needed like professional stunt doubles like to do the stunts for him, right? Because they're like, we're not putting Sean Connery in a jetpack. Like, that's insane.
Well, I think the reason why it perseveres is because I've heard an interview with the Broccoli's talking about this, is that Bond is, their goal for the character of Bond is to be present with the time at all times. And that's why Bond has changed so much from what it used to be till what it is now. That is intentional. Bond is supposed to represent every era, every year when it comes out.
No, that makes sense.
It
From
does.
fashion, from like popular locations, popular things to do. Like, you know, you get a lot of skiing stuff when it's the height of skiing. You get parkour when it's the height of parkour. That is an intentional thing to keep it ever present.
Yeah, that's true. Because it does, I think, yeah, in the literal sense, that does create a instance for it to persevere.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would completely agree. And the fact that he's like Daniel Craig is able to, I mean, relate with us nowadays. We wanted a James Bond that wasn't campy,
Right.
and we got it. And I mean, I can't really relate to the 60s, 70s, and 80s because I was not there back then. But at the same time, I could see that. I could see my dad being like, "Oh, yeah, can relate to this guy."
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that's why, I mean, almost in every era, there's like nostalgia, and why people are always nostalgic for like, and I think even with this franchise, people are nostalgic for their Bond, right? They're like, people like who grew up in the 70s are like, oh, you know, Roger Moore, that was a real Bond, that guy, right? But even though I think he's got the campiest movies of maybe next to Brosnan.
Yeah, I think they're neck and neck. I would have to say.
Definitely.
I mean, just I don't know, all of Moonraker. It's just something.
Well, I know you got like the pigeon double take.
Oh, the pigeon double take. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The pigeon double take, or the whatever one has like the Slim Pickens, like the racist guy, which he's in 2 movies. I know we're talking about the wrong guy, but I just always think about when you said jump the shark, and I agree, it's probably during Connery, which we'll come back to. But the two moments I think of I'm going to say three real quick is the pigeon double take, the car doing the rotating flip. That's fine, but the slide whistle noise to it, where it's like goes off a ramp, it flips around, and it goes, and then the Kananga balloon. Those are like the three like big, which, like I said, I still agree. It probably jumped the shark quite earlier, but when you say jump the shark for Bond, those are the three moments I think of.
I like that you picked a literal like jumping over a river moment though.
Yes.
Which is a cool stunt in itself. But yeah, the slide whistle is kind
Take the slide whistle out, and that's like a top stunt.
I mean, I don't know. I even putting the plane wings on Christopher Lee's car in that movie. It's a little extra. But lest we get too lost yet in the Roger Moore era or any other era, let's go back to where it all started and talk about how we got into, I guess, what they call the Eon Pictures era. Because this was the studio that initially developed the Bond that we know now. And because, I mean, truthfully, what we should actually kind of start with is the fact that there was sort of a rights issue with the fact that Casino Royale had already been adapted as kind of a parody in like 1961, I think, or 60.
Is that the Woody Allen one?
Yeah.
Jimmy Bond.
Yeah, it's like and I gotta look up like who it is because now obviously we have our own Casino Royale, but there was the Casino Royale that came out in I guess it was 1967 with Peter Sellers and David Niven.
Yeah, there was two what we know Bonds, and there was also a spoofy one with Woody Allen.
Yeah, that was the 1967 one.
Yeah, that is with Woody Allen.
I believe so.
Oh, it is.
I believe so.
Okay, I mean, that's kind of the whole thing is that I think in the book series, and Ian Fleming obviously started writing Bond initially as a book series, as Tony was just filling us in on, right? So initially, that's where everything kind of started up here, right? So Ian Fleming, formerly in, the services, shall we say. But yeah, so, he started writing these books about James Bond. Well, naturally, we have, a studio that becomes interested right away, like, this could make a hell of a movie, my guy. Like,
Hey, my guy, come on here.
yeah.
Come here. I need that movie.
Have either of you guys read any of the books?
No.
No, never read the book.
I was thinking about doing the audiobook for this podcast.
Oh, interesting.
It's free, 7.5 hours on YouTube. Plug for YouTube.
They really need it right now. I wonder if they've ever done like you can get an audiobook of a James Bond and it's like read by Daniel Craig or like
No, I would love it to be read by Ian Fleming.
Oh yeah,
Ian Fleming.
Ian Fleming.
Ian Fleming. Oh, you do not make me bring the Ian Fleming accent out.
Oh god,
I've been trying all day. It's not working out.
Don't even about it. So Fleming had first mentioned during World War II, which he was in. Obviously, him and Tolkien, I think, have their similarities in some regards, but that he wanted to write a spy novel, and it was an ambition he actually achieved within 2 months with the book Casino Royale, which was his first one. He started writing the book at a place called GoldenEye, which is what inspired the title of that movie, because that was the first movie that was not an adaptation of a Ian Fleming novel. But he started writing that January 1952, was finished in February of 1952. So he did it very, very quickly. But I think initially it was kind of a dreadful thing. It was kind of what they said. It was kind of corny. But after some rounds of editing, he started to find his voice a little bit. Finally released in April 1953. And basically, it was a success, and three print runs were needed to cope with the demand for the novels, which were centered on the exploits of James Bond, an officer in the Secret Intelligence Service, commonly known though as MI6.
I know you can stay at GoldenEye in Jamaica.
Oh, is that right?
Expansive, of course, but that is a thing that people can do.
Man, I didn't even know that was like a thing that was available, though. So after a series of novels, though, that he wrote, so I should say we're going to bypass over a lot of the Ian Fleming history because I would like to get us into the movie
Of
franchise,
course.
which we know and love. But he first wrote Dr. No as a television outline for film producer Henry Morgenthau III, it was to promote Jamaican tourism, basically. So after the project fell through, though, Fleming began meeting with Canadian film producer Harry Saltzman about making a film adaptation instead. So although, and I'm taking this from the history notes, Fleming was not a fan of the kitchen sink realist genre. Saltzman was known for producing. After he saw Saturday Night was the name of the movie, not the recent one.
Well, I would have told him, like, hey, it's kind of fun to see people play people.
I'm sorry. The movie was called Saturday Night and Sunday Morning. So this was actually like about the morning after the first episode of SNL.
The
probably.
hangovers, the after party. That
Yeah, John
continued
Belushi
on.
was probably like bare naked in like the middle of some room. But Fleming sold all the rights to him for James Bond except for Casino Royale and Thunderball. So Saltzman gained the rights for the novel Dr. No, and he initially had trouble financing the project. So screenwriter Wolf Mankiewicz,
The Mankiewicz.
Yeah.
the Mankiewicz,
They just, from all the way, that's like the cousin. He's the nephew of Mank. Like, the writer of
Citizen King.
Citizen Kane.
So Wolf Mankiewicz introduced Saltzman to Albert Broccoli,
Tubby.
who wanted the rights to the novels and attempted to buy them from Saltzman. Saltzman did not want to sell the rights to Broccoli, and instead they formed a partnership to make films together. So a number of Hollywood film studios did not want to fund the films, finding them too British, is how they put it, or too blatantly sexual.
I can see that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Too British. I like it.
Look, they're British, but like, I don't know that I see too British.
Yeah, I mean, anytime M's on the screen, then we're talking. Then we're talking too British.
Yes.
I mean, it's British in the sense it's a bunch of people from Europe going to a island and acting like they own the place.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's very true.
Revolutionary times.
So eventually the two received authorization from United Artists to produce Dr. No, which was to be released in 1962. Saltzman and Broccoli created two companies, Danjak, which was to hold the rights to the films, and Eon Productions, which was to produce them. Broccoli and Saltzman had wanted to produce the eighth Bond novel, Thunderball, as the first film, but there was an ongoing legal dispute between the screenplay's co-author, Kevin McClory, and Ian Fleming. The long story short there is that basically McClory claimed that he wrote a screen adaptation for a James Bond film that was not Thunderball, and then Ian Fleming based his novel Thunderball on that screenplay. And so they were in a legal dispute, basically being like, you stole my story to create a James Bond movie, to create another Bond book.
It was a secret window situation.
A little bit. So this was a whole shit show where they're still trying to figure this out. This actually creates a very interesting capper to Sean Connery's Bond career.
It does.
That we will get into later on. But as a result, they decided to choose Dr. No instead as the first movie. So the producer's first choice for director was Phil Carlson. There's a lot of names here that I don't know.
Yeah, they're going right over the head.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of lean on Fred to maybe pick up on a couple of these guys.
They weren't, if it's like the 60s, and that's like they're going to be talking about directors. I know they're not going to be like, we talked to Francis Ford Coppola.
Unfortunately, yeah, I'm like, there really wasn't a lot of like guys here that you're gonna be like, oh right, him. So yeah, Phil Carlson asked for too high of a salary, so they moved on. They talked to Guy Green, Guy Hamilton,
All the guys.
Val Guest, and Ken Hughes. All of them turned it down. They finally went to Terrence Young, a very important figure in early Bond films, as he ended up, spoiler alert, directing not only Dr. No, but also From Russia with Love and inevitably Thunderball. So he had a long background with Broccoli's films as a director, and basically they the production designer Ken Adam later told the UK Daily newspaper about Dr. No. So basically they finally found a affordable director, but the big issue was funding. So production designer Ken Adam, why are we talking to him? He talked to The Guardian back in 2005, so this is years and years after the fact. He said the budget for Dr. No was under $1 million for the whole picture.
That's impressive.
And
That's
I
impressive.
think a lot of it is high-end clothing.
Yep.
And location? Would you say?
It's pretty cheap to film in
Jamaica.
then.
Yeah.
Fair.
He said he filled 3 stages at Pinewood full of sets while they were filming in Jamaica. It wasn't a real aquarium in Dr. No's apartment. It was actually a disaster in his estimation because they had so little money. They decided to use a rear projection screen and get some stock footage of fish. He said what we didn't realize was because we didn't have much money, the only stock footage they could buy of goldfish-sized fish. So we had to blow up the size and put a line in the dialogue of Bond talking about the magnification of the fish.
I'll say this. I prefer all this over CGI.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, very true.
So
Oh my gosh.
inventive.
Absolutely.
He said, I didn't see any reason why Dr. No shouldn't have a good taste, so we mixed contemporary furniture and antiques. Thought it would be fun for him to have some stolen art, so we put Goya's portrait of the Duke of Wellington, which was still missing at the time. Yeah, so
I had to look it up. I saw Sean kind of eyeing that. I had to look it up. I
Yeah?
had to look up what the painting was.
yeah. So he said, I got a hold of a slide from the National Gallery. This was on the Friday shooting before shooting began on Monday. And I painted over a Goya over the weekend. He said it was so good that they used it for publicity purposes, but just like the real one, it got stolen while it was on display. So very, very interesting. So yeah, so I kind of segued very quickly there, but they went for, that's why they turned down the one director that they really wanted, because he wanted too high of a salary. They needed to budget cap this thing like crazy. And $1 million, you know, obviously in 1962, it's not a minimal amount of money, but that's not a lot for an action-oriented movie,
Yeah.
right?
What is it net? What was the last one? No Time to Die. What was that at?
All right. James Bond, No Time to Die, had a production budget of, there's no way, between 250 and 300 million.
Yep. Because that was a stop and start production for sure.
That's right. That's right.
Wow. That's crazy.
And Cary Fukunaga is someone who's very exacting in what they want and will walk off a project. So I think they were willing. Like, I mean, he was supposed to do the It movies, which would have been good. I mean, I like the It movies, but that would have been better. I'm just gonna say now. I like the guy's work, but yeah, I think that's why that's an inflated budget compared. But I'm like wondering how much of that was like the luxury items of it. I think it was more the technical stuff of it.
Oh, I see.
Had to have been.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, they filmed all over for No Time to Die, where this was pretty solely in Jamaica, outside
Jamaica
of
or sets.
outside of the production studio. So, as far as casting is concerned, while producers Broccoli and Saltzman originally sought Cary Grant for the role, they discarded the idea as Grant would be committed to only one film, and the producers decided to go after someone who could be part of the whole series. So there's a lot of names here again of people who I don't think anybody's going to really recognize. Richard Johnson.
Oh, Big John? No, I don't know any of these names because the only name from that list is the guy we know, Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Connery.
So yeah, Patrick McGoohan was considered.
Goo?
Yeah, the Goo. And David Niven, who later played Bond in the 1967 parody Casino Royale. So that's the one interesting one.
Circle it back around.
But basically, all these guys were either not interested for one reason or another, or they were too expensive, something or other, or just wouldn't commit to a long thing. So ultimately, producers turned to then 31-year-old Sean Connery for a 5-film deal.
He was 31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
31 when he got cast.
Wow.
It is often reported that Connery won the role through a contest set up to find James Bond. This is not true.
On the radio show?
Yeah, I know, right? It's not true, but the contest itself did actually exist, and 6 finalists were chosen and screen tested by the whole production team. The winner of the contest was a 28-year-old named Peter Anthony, but according to Broccoli, while he had kind of a Gregory Peck quality, he was unable to cope with the role. I don't know what that means.
No.
Dope, huh?
I mean, especially since Doctor No's more of a vibe movie than anything.
Yeah, maybe he was afraid of dragons.
Do you have like just like that the background on Connery like pre this at all?
Oh, like
Like his
what-
career beforehand? So
Yeah, because I just had like some stuff about him before he gets this role.
yeah, go
How
ahead.
he was a sailor
Mhm.
and then he got discharged because he had ulcers.
Mm.
It hurts my
30?
hurts my stomach. And he was like, because it was just funny. They were listing all these different things he did. He was a truck driver, a funeral, like he was a coffin cleaner for a funeral home.
Oh my God.
He was so he was offered a job with Manchester United, turned it down because they were only offering like £25 a week.
Oh,
Like
man.
At that
he was gonna be a
time-
soccer player?
Yes.
Oh, no way.
And there's pictures of him, like, I think he's got the Manchester United shirt on. And then the other thing was he wanted to be a bodybuilder. But the thing was, and dude was jacked, but he said the issue was he couldn't compete with American bodybuilders because they were treating their bodies so unhealthily to get to the shape they were. And I'm like, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you hear about any history, and Arnold Schwarzenegger talks a lot about that too, even like in the 70s and 80s, and just how like bad it was and what they had to do to get.
But damn, do they look good.
Do you look great?
I also heard Sean Connery, since he was Scottish,
Mm-hmm.
bring that back around, Ian Fleming was not a fan.
Yeah.
Ian Fleming was not a fan. He was also like, he's Scottish. James Bond is, Sean Connery is rugged. James Bond is more of a classy guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it turned around when he saw the film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He appreciated Sean Connery's commitment to the role.
Yes. So when Connery was invited to meet Broccoli and Saltzman, he appeared scruffy and in unimpressed clothes.
Oh, I beat you to the punch.
But Connery put on an act, and it paid off as he acted in the meeting with a macho devil-may-care attitude, is what they reported. When he left, both Saltzman and Broccoli watched him through the window as he went to his car, both agreeing that
Hands on the window, like, oh, look at him.
they're like, yeah, that's the right guy for Bond. I mean, if he can get into a car and look good doing it, they're right.
yeah, man.
He's got the swag for it.
I look like shit getting out of a car. I'll say that. That's all.
I didn't want to say anything. I'm like, I don't think I've ever watched Fred get in and out of a car.
Well, pay attention next time.
Oh, except for our Sopranos promo that we did.
Oh,
We were
yeah.
driving around for that. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, you guys got a Sopranos. Hell yeah.
Yeah, it was a very fun episode. But we did a very fun promo. Fred and I cut that together. We spent an afternoon one day just going around.
Tony Soprano.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was mostly just me driving around in my Toyota. You know, some great shots of Milwaukee, courtesy of Tom. But you know, people could check that out on some of our socials. It's there. I've seen it. I watch it a
It's
lot.
on our YouTube for sure.
Hell yeah. Love plugging the podcast.
Should we start talking about like the movie itself? I don't know that we have to go beat for beat through the entire movie.
I don't think we should because we've got
I mean,
quite
I
a
got notes
few.
for
we got quite a few to go through.
No, I absolutely. We can skip a good amount of this movie. would
But
say.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, right? It takes place in Jamaica. It's the first Bond movie.
maybe we do start at the beginning though.
Sure.
It was I didn't have a cold open.
Mm-hmm.
There was no Bond song,
Right.
except if you want to count the Three Blind Mice as it strolls into the movie. Yeah, no, and I thought it was I loved that there was no Bond song. I didn't love it, but there was no Bond song, and then there was the way they did the credits was unique with all those dots.
Yep.
I call them epilepsy dots.
Mhm.
I'm sure if someone was seeing that film and had epilepsy, they were
Oh, for
having
sure.
a bad time.
Yeah. But it is. I mean, again, we're talking about creating the template, setting the tone for the whole series. That whole kind of opening sequence basically sort of informs what we see afterward, because we don't hear the Bond theme as he's walking up to like the gun barrel shot, right? But we still see at least a very strange moment of that goes into the Bond theme, doesn't it? After he fires the gun?
Yes, it goes into the Bond theme.
Right.
If I recall
Because that's the
correctly.
opening credit song in this one. It's just the regular Bond theme.
Yeah, I wrote down here space sounds, xylophone, and then classic Bond turn and shoot.
Yeah, I love this, and I like what they do now better, how they've kind of had the thing, because like when I see a new Bond movie, I'm excited for a cold open, I'm excited for the bullet shot, and I'm excited for the song. But I do love that this was the first time, and they, like I've said earlier, they're still pulling from this today, and like the epilepsy dots. But I love how it goes into the Three Blind Mice song, and then you have these like kind of silhouette cartoons, and then it blends into the story, and then you kind of see these, and it's kind of like a throwaway thing, and then of course it comes back, and they're assassins, which also lays the groundwork of, I mean. It's a little today. I would not say it's cool to be like, the thing is they're blind and they're assassins, because anyone could be an assassin. But at like further time, they're like, oh, we're going to have assassins that have something that separate them from other assassins, and
Right.
like a vibe. And that's totally something that carries on further. And I really fucked with Dr. No, because I wasn't sure I'd ever seen it before. And because I was ready for a slow movie, like I knew this was going to be like a 60s pace movie, I actually quite enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the vistas of the Caribbean. I loved the fits. I liked a lot about it. I loved the barrels of Red Stripe I saw.
Yes. Yeah.
I was really digging this movie.
No, I would agree. I would say it's the weaker out of the three that we're reviewing today, just basically because it's Goldfinger, and From Russia with Love is just my favorite. Just my favorite out of the Sean Connery. Can I say that over Diamonds Are Forever? Even Never Say Never Again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would completely agree. To start James Bond in these vistas of Jamaica, I think is a good way to start. Put him in an exotic location and see where we get with.
Well, you get so many Bond staples in this, right?
Yes.
It's like, and I think it's hard not to talk about how much of this is. I mean, and you could equate this to a lot of different series too. I even think about like Batman Begins. I mean, I think that's better than Dark Knight Rises, but
Oh yeah.
it walked so Dark Knight could run, right? And I
Yes.
think it's a very similar way with Dr. No and like From Russia with Love.
I had the same thought when we started recording Batman Begins to The Dark Knight with those two movies.
Yeah, like this is our first introduction. We're trying to figure out who James Bond is, right? You know, he's playing cards, or no, I'm sorry, not cards. What is he playing? Is it Baccarat?
Baccarat. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Baccarat brings
And
it back around.
you are.
Oh, and I wrote she does the Bond thing first. Trench. Sylvia Trench.
Yes.
I was always thinking maybe it started with her. It started with Trench.
But then, of course, he answers. Who's got the right Connery for this one? Let's each do one. Let's see who's got it. Let's do it. All right.
Bond. James Bond.
I like it.
Thank you.
You go. I'm getting set up.
Get ready.
Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond. It's the James Bond's hard to do as Connery, I
Yeah.
would say.
Yes.
Because he kind of drops his voice sometimes. You have to do the Bond. James Bond.
And the Scottish accent doesn't come out.
Yeah.
I will say
100%.
for an impression, the word I love to say is Goldfinger.
Goldfinger.
Because I can say that, like, I think it's pretty good, but I can't do much more than Goldfinger.
I would like to imagine, and we'll get to it when we get to Goldfinger, but that they put so many words in the script that just would sound hilarious coming out of his mouth. Pushy.
I must be dreaming.
But yeah, I mean, so we hear that for the first time, and that just becomes his immediate response. He starts with his last name, and then it gives you his full name. Like, nobody talks like that. I never go, yeah, I'm Stadler, Tom Stadler.
Tenaglia. Tony Tenaglia.
Yeah, but that's got some flavor to it.
Yeah, it works, and I also do it if I have like a reservation at a restaurant. I'll do the Dakin Frederick Dagan. Because why not? What are they going to say to me?
Do you also order a martini, shaken not stirred?
When I was like really getting to Bond in college, I would take it a step further, and I'd always try to get a Vesper martini because I'm like, because that's what Ian Fleming, that was his drink of choice.
Mm-hmm.
I like your Fleming. I like it comes out. There's a flair to it. Yeah.
It's my cue too. Is that now pay attention, 007, because this is very important.
they do have some overlap there.
And do try to bring it back in one piece.
I did want to talk a little bit about the James Bond theme song, though, like the main theme, the one we hear in here, because I think it's commonly attributed to John Barry, and his orchestra, who did the whole arrangement. But the theme was actually written by a man named Monty Norman, who wrote and composed that James Bond. Well, he did the whole score for Dr. No, which is a great score, I think.
For sure.
And that's something, I mean, again, that it's sort of a tone setter for the whole series. Music is so important to Bond, especially that opening theme.
Yes. Not only that, if I remember correctly, the James Bond theme does play when you hear his name in Doctor No.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's definitely a music sting. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of hear he goes like, well, James Bond, you hear that.
James Bond.
Yeah.
I'm still trying. I'm sorry. I'm going to keep trying.
Keep going. Don't stop.
You can get it. Just bring out your Shrek. Let's hear your Shrek.
Why don't you get away from me, donkey? Yeah. I'll have a martini shaken, not stirred.
Onions have layers.
Then you got like your train spotting Scottish, like, got any gear on you? I need some gear right now.
Are you doing, you're not doing McGregor, though.
I'm
You're
doing Johnny Lee Miller. I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah.
Do it like British, by like. Bro, he has that great part in Train Spotting, all talking about like the differences between Sean Connery and Roger Moore, I believe.
Oh wow! Hey, what a pull!
Oh yeah, I love Train Spotting. Danny B is my guy.
But so there was actually some dispute, though, as to who got the credit for this. So Monty Norman is the one that ended up winning this case, but because John Barry ended up going on and composing soundtracks for like 11 James Bond films after this one. But courts ruled that the theme was written by Monty Norman, despite claims and testimony by Barry that he had actually written the theme, because I mean it's such a epic, like, it's recognizable immediately, right?
It's what makes James Bond.
Yeah.
Bond. Let's be honest here. You can bring a James Bond like Bond song in, but it's if you don't have that in there, what are we working with?
And what I love about it, though, too, is like, yeah, and then you hear kind of echoes of that main theme throughout, like we talked about when he says his name, and then that kind of carries on in and From Russia with Love. They kind of hear that same, like, the main theme kind of getting worked into the score throughout the film. Russia.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
I mean, I guess maybe it's even just more in my brain because we're coming off of the Oscars, which was at the time of recording last night, and they had a whole medley of Bond opening themes.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, did you miss
I
it?
missed the Oscars. I missed
Yeah.
it. We were watching Goldfinger.
Oh, it's all right. Yeah, they did Live and Let Die. They did, what was the other one? Was it?
Is this a reaction to
It
the
was-
broccoli selling
Yes.
Amazon?
They did
Or
like
to
a
Amazon?
whole honoring the Broccoli's and Michael. It was her and Michael G. Wilson. They were both, doing a thing for her, which I guess was like good time, but also weird time. And it felt like that, like they just got rid of this shit. I was also kind of mad today because I wanted to rewatch Diamonds Are Forever. I'm like, this shit's not on Amazon Prime yet.
Oh, and Diamonds Are Forever was the other song, and then Skyfall. So they kind of represented all the eras of Bond. And I mean, we're not going to talk about it today, but Live and Let Die is a theme that absolutely rips. And like for an intro to a new era of Bond, like you're like, oh shit, now I'm ready. Like,
Paul McCartney and his wife, right? Wing.
Wanks.
I absolutely love when they do the reggae breakdown right in the middle.
Oh
of it.
yeah.
For no reason.
how does it matter to you? But back to Dr. No. What else about the movie really sat with you guys? And I mean, we can kind of keep progressing through it, talking about it.
No, I think you spoke that yes, it outlined what James Bond would be moving forward. also the characters that came into it. We had Quail, who became your first Bond friend. What do you call him? Bond support.
Sure.
Bond buddy.
A Bond buddy.
Bond
I like
buddy.
it, Bond buddy. And you got the CIA, you got Felix Leiter, who
Yeah.
shows up.
Yes.
Felix Leiter right away in this movie.
And you got your Bond girls, of course. Yeah, no, I think it just sets up like what Bond is going to be for the future. But yeah,
Yeah, I love just like the setting of the movie. I was really into the tarantula scene in the movie.
I have right here spider scene with an exclamation point.
Hell yeah. And the whole thing with the dragon army tank thing. Like, I just love, like I said, I definitely would not rank this as the best one, but this was the biggest surprise. Because I'm sure at one point I saw Dr. No, but when I would go back through, I never would pick it back up again because I was like, that's the first boring one. Everyone says that one's long, boring. But, you know, as I get older, I kind of like some that drags a little. I like some that sits in itself a little bit.
Well, more staples though you see, right? Like unique ways that they're trying to assassinate him. It's like it's the stuff that Austin Powers ends up riffing on a little bit too. Speaking of Mike Myers, but
No, absolutely.
you know, it's like putting him in very complicated traps. It's like, okay, we're using a tarantula to try and kill him. Like,
Or I just love the other things I'll say, and then I don't really have much else to say about Dr. No. I love it when he goes into his room and he bondifies it by like he does the hair on the door.
Yeah.
He's got his backup bottle of vodka if they do anything funny to it.
Yeah.
Like I just love how he does all the stuff in his room. Like, yeah, people are gonna be trying to kill me. I'm gonna fix this. I just love it. He like smells the vodka and he's like, oh shit, and he just opens a drawer and grabs like a fresh bottle.
yeah.
Always prepared. Always prepared. But yeah, I love the hair because it's just that's gonna fall. I mean, come on. It's just a hair on a door. And he only does two things. He does the suitcase and the door or the
Yeah.
closet.
But I do love those scenes, and I think it's not even like a thing that you only see in Dr. No, but where you know he'll proof the room or he'll even inspect the room, and I think that happens in I might be Dr. No or From Russia with Love, where he's like looking for wiretaps throughout the room
Yes.
and like checking everything. And,
One of them has a two-way mirror situation.
yeah,
Yeah, Goldfinger. Hell yeah.
yeah, and it's just I love that there's always those details where it's like you get a sense for how smart Bond is of like he kind of knows to look for some of this stuff. But yeah, Felix Leiter makes his first appearance. One of the rotating actors for Felix Leiter. There's like never the same guy.
I'm watching. I'm like, Jesus, can we get American in this movie? God,
We need a real fucking CIA agent who can just be his guy.
you need some cowboy shit in this.
But we also do get our first Bond girl,
Yes.
and this one has some recognizable names. So I'll tell the story of how we got to Ursula Andress, who was the first Bond girl, Honey Rider. So Julie Christie was the first one considered. You guys know who Julie Christie is?
Name
No.
sounds familiar.
I didn't.
Julie Christie, big actress at the time. Let me see if I can pull a movie that you would recognize her in. I think if you saw an image of Julie Christie, you would be like, "Oh, right, her." I mean, a lot of her bigger work was later on. She was in Fahrenheit 451, Dr. Zhivago. God, it's like I said. Let me see if I can find an old photo. It's a newer photo of her in here, but she's kind of the classic like 60s girl.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
cool. Familiar.
Yeah, I mean, she's just a very recognizable Bond, if you or blonde, not a Bond.
Blonde, not Bond.
I love this in her bio on IMDb. Julie Christie, the British movie legend, whom Al Pacino called the most poetic of all the actresses.
Oh, it sounds so poetic coming from Al.
It really adds something to it. Martine Beswick was also rejected for being too inexperienced. Oh, Julie Christie was not voluptuous enough for producers, so they turned her down. And then Gabriella Lucidi was rejected for being too young. So just before filming began, it was about 2 weeks before, Ursula Andress was chosen to play Honey Rider after producers saw a picture of her taken by her then husband, John Derek. Kirk Douglas persuaded Andress to take the part at a party hosted by her husband, John Derek. Then we get our first Bond villain in this one.
The heavy.
the heavy, who sets up. I would like. What do you want to call this? A
Poor casting.
Spectre?
Oh, okay.
I mean, yes, and yes.
So I wanted to reference. I mean, he's supposed to be Chinese.
He's German Chinese, but he's
That's right.
played
They
by
did an excuse with the
an
German.
extremely white man.
Like Emma Stone in Aloha.
Yes. Oh boy. So yeah, problematic in some ways. What I was going to mention is this is the first Bond villain where we set kind of a precedent of unique features,
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes.
right? Like
Good point.
something that I think a lot of people who maybe are unfamiliar with Bond are associated with Bond is that the villains are all kind of like have some kind of attribute that you can remember about them, right? Like,
Someone's really good at chess.
yeah. Or yes.
Can't feel pain.
Yes.
But right, so I mean, he has like what metal hands, right? He has like
Yeah.
metal prosthetic hands. You have like and we'll talk about it in Goldfinger, right? And then we see the assassins even have unique attributes, like Oddjob. He always wearing his bowler hat and
Jaws with his
steel
Jaws.
teeth, right? And
Mr. Hinks.
With his
This is Dave Bautista, and he's got a little thumb.
oh,
thing.
that's right.
That's right.
That was the one time I feel the Craig movies tried to do like henchman with a thing.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
mad they didn't do more.
But then you have like Blofeld, not the Christoph Waltz version, but
No, the originals before
yeah,
they lost the rights.
the Donald
DP Pleasance.
Pleasance, thank you. Yeah, with his like his scar on his face and the bald head and his stroking his cat. Very, very like I mean we'll get to that and You Only Live Twice, but that's I mean kind of the template for like a big villain, right? Like but yeah, so I think you have this and so here the story for the casting because it's kind of need to be known. Again, this is for a character that is described as German Chinese. So Dr. No, for the character of Dr. No, Ian Fleming wanted his friend Noel Coward, and Coward answered the invitation with no, no, no.
Oh, he's perfect.
Very funny. Fleming considered then his step cousin, Christopher Lee, to be the role. Would be good for the role of Dr. No. Although by the time Fleming told the producers, they had already chosen Joseph Wiseman for the part. Saltzman picked Wiseman because of his performance in a movie called Detective Story from 1951. But obviously, prescient information to know, one, that Christopher Lee somehow is always connected to every fucking major like author in England. But two, that he ends up becoming a Bond villain later on during the Roger Moore era in The Man with the Golden Gun. The eponymous Man with the Golden Gun.
The man with the 3 nipples.
Yeah, and that too. Yeah,
A third nipple, sir.
speaking of interesting attributes, aside from the fact that it's fucking like Saruman, just like young hot Saruman, the Bond villain.
Damn, he was hot.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Fred's nodding.
Oh, sorry.
Aggressively.
Yes.
Yes. So that was it's our first Bond film. It's a romp, right? I mean, it's kind of it's does well. So off of a budget of $1 million, the movie made. Do you guys want to guess?
I don't know. It was back in the 60s, like $70.
4.5.
4.5.
4.5 mil.
It made $59.5 million. So I mean,
That's a lot of quarters.
today, yeah.
That's about what Brave New World made, I think, in its opening weekend.
It's so I mean,
Oscar nod.
the reviews were actually at the time kind of mixed, but overall, people love the idea of the character. They love the idea of the stories, and yeah, obviously made a ton of money, especially overseas, where people had probably read a lot of the books and recognized, oh yeah, here's Bond. So, I mean, you can say that they were like, yeah, we obviously wanted this. We are already committed to a sequel, but I mean, it was a big deal.
Did they do the same thing they did with From Russia with Love and said Bond will be back in From Russia with Love? Because they do that with From Russia with Love. They said Bond will be back with Goldfinger.
I don't think they did.
I don't remember.
Okay, they were still on the tipping point of
Mhm.
is this going to be?
I love a Bond will be back or anyone will be back.
Yeah, right.
Doc and Marty.
Or God, why do they always say like so and so will be back? It's like in all the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
too.
they love throwing that scene at the end.
So following the financial success of Dr. No, United Artists greenlit the second James Bond film. Oh, go ahead.
Can I jump in?
You may.
I'm curious. Do you guys know what Dr. No was trying to do? What was his evil plan?
Wasn't he pitting the East versus the West? His inner wasn't that his inner because he German Asia.
They mention it like really early with M. He's like brings up toppling, which is something like radio signals busting up missile trajectories, and then during the pivotal scene where James Bond comes in his minions outfit and takes down Dr. No. They are watching an American space launch.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, they turn on the radiation and they get their radio signals and they're about to launch it. And Sean Connery flips that switch to make all the radiation go back on. Apparently they were trying to topple the flight.
Oh.
Which I was curious because it took me 3 viewings to be like, oh, that's what the hell he's trying to do.
So then would the idea be to blame the Soviets?
Yes.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which it kind of ends up feeling like every Spectre plot in every one of these
Right, yeah,
movies is.
I want to start World War III.
Yeah. Because, right. I mean, Spectre, so Dr. No is a agent for Spectre. What, Tony, do you know what Spectre stands for?
If without opening it up, special executive. No,
You're doing well so far.
It's a special executive. Terrorism or counterterrorism,
Close.
revenge, and extortion.
Yes.
I knew that.
Very.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. Special executive for counterintelligence, terrorism, revenge, and extortion. But yeah, they're a terrorist organization that Bond is constantly coming to terms heads with in every one of these movies, basically, especially the early series here with Connery. And Dr. No is one of those agents, and everybody has a number, which is why we have the whole joke about number 2 in Austin Powers.
Show them what you do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What do you think Dr. No's number was? Do you think he was number 2?
Ooh. No, he's not, because I know who number 2 is.
Oh.
Because it's the character that number 2 is based off of.
Okay, yes.
What do you got?
What do you want to guess? I don't think there is.
George Harrison.
I actually don't know. Would you? Is there a Dr. No number?
George Hamilton. That's what I meant to say, not George Harrison.
Bring the Beatles involved here. All right.
So the Spectre numbers. So obviously, well, he's
And
not
picture
number
an
2.
octopus with many legs.
Yes. 8.
Yes.
Dr. No is number. Oh my God, he's way the hell down. I have a whole list of every operative and their number.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which
I love that. I love that they documented this.
I mean, listen, somebody did the work.
I love the lore.
To be like, yeah, all these guys have this, but I can't.
Damn, Dr. No.
I don't know that he had an. Oh, yes, he did not have a designated number.
Okay, fair. Sorry. Derailed it for a moment.
You
I was
did, Tony,
curious.
but that's
I was
okay.
curious.
These are the important questions to ask.
Yeah, that's what we're getting here for.
So, right, back to where we talk about From Russia with Love. Right, we started talking about that. The studio doubled the budget for Eon production, so now we're talking $2 million for From Russia with Love.
Think Sean Connery got $100,000 bonus on top of that?
Correct. To go on top of a $54,000 salary.
Wow. That is low.
They
For a pivotal
For sure.
character.
The producers chose this as a follow-up because it was a personal favorite of then U.S. President Doctor.
No.
Dr. Donald. No, JFK.
Oh, yeah.
John F. Kennedy. Yeah, one of his 10 favorite books of all time is what he listed in Life magazine. So they were like, well, if we're going to impress President Kennedy, got to do that.
Gotta do it.
Yeah, that was the last film Kennedy saw at the White House before he was assassinated.
Oh, no way.
Yep.
Wow.
True story.
Morbid.
Yeah, very, very, very morbid. Very morbid.
Not a bad way to go out. Not what happened to him, but for watching the last movie.
Hey, that's the way I want to go out.
But yeah, so few changes in the sequel. So John Barry then became officially the composer for the entire soundtrack, unquestionably in charge of that. But also introduced a lot of different conventions that would continue to go on throughout Bond movies. What were some of your thoughts? So I know you mentioned, Tony, you are a big fan of From Russia with Love. You want to kick us off on just talking about it?
Just talking about it. Yeah, absolutely. I think it, from watching Dr. No and then watching From Russia with Love, the tone seems a little bit more condensed. It feels like the story is going down the train.
Oh, there's a train.
as
Well
I-
said.
But it introduces you to the spy, much more of like a because you get Bay, Kareem Bay, who introduces him to the Russian the Turkey, not mob. What do you call that? The underground, the spies in Turkey, the conveyor. What am I trying to say?
I don't know, but it sounds right.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, no, he and I feel like he gets the tone because you also got your Robert Shaw. Which
Yes.
is I think he helps just make this movie,
Absolutely.
Mr. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Grant. I think is you have that rival element, but also you just have a great James Bond movie at the same time. You get a comparison, and also you get Blofeld.
Yes.
You sure do. Well, you don't really see.
No,
him.
I don't even think you get his name.
No, I think in the end credits he's listed with a question mark.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Just, he's number one.
That's a great. Who does SNL? Who
Mike Myers?
No. Who?
Lorne Michaels?
Lorne Michaels. That's a great Lorne Michaels.
Which, obviously is the inspiration for Dr. Evil. But we also get an introduction of Q, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the first gadget with the attaché case 007.
Yeah, well, in the first one, he just takes his gun, his Beretta, and gives him
Walther PPK.
PK. State of the art.
and now you get an actual gadget, which
Yes.
becomes very in handy.
Yeah, that shit would blow up in my face so quick. I'm not going to remember to twist it this way and that way. This is not happening.
It was absolutely. I got a bad memory as well.
But, you called out the train, and I think that's what makes, I love a good train,
Yes.
but also that fight on the train is so well choreographed. Robert Shaw is obviously a great presence. This is, I think, a forgotten role of his, because obviously the first thing everyone's going to call out when you say like Robert Shaw, and be like Jaws, right? It's
Yes.
like, okay, that's like his quintessential. Maybe people are really feeling themselves and going, well, the Sting, you guys remember that?
I'd like to mention just that cold open is so good.
Yes, the cold. Oh yeah, we get our cold open, our first cold open. You think you see James? They do a really good job making Sean Connery look extra waxy.
Yeah.
Yep, and he's like playing it big.
Yes,
He's like, oh, like the whole time wide eyed, like, hey.
got caught in a cornfield or a maze. Yeah, got caught in the hedge maze.
Yeah, it's very interesting kind of seeing like that like training camp, right, for the assassins or like the Spectre agents, and so yeah, you're starting to see how the other side lives a little bit in this movie, right? And we get the introduction of Blofeld, and we kind of learn a little bit more about who are these people that Bond is coming to heads with, right? But yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic ride. I think it's so interesting. Like, he goes to Venice in this one too, right? Or do we?
No, we start in Venice.
Right,
and that's
that's it.
the chess tournament,
Yes.
which is
Love
an
some
awesome
chess
theme.
in a movie.
I love that big chessboard.
Yeah.
That's fun. That's like, hey, that's your big screen TV in the amphitheater right there. But yeah, we start off with number 5. Number 5, I believe. What did we call it? What was his name?
I have the list of every Spectre agent.
Oh
now.
goodness, I have it in my notes. Anyway, number 5.
Tav Kronstein.
Kronstein. Yes, Kronstein is like, who's better than James Bond? Kronstein. That's his excuse the entire time for the failed plan and everything. Like, you think it wasn't Bond? It wasn't the players. It's my plan. It's Kronstein's plan. And eventually he gets poison shoe knifed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I practiced the way I was going to say it.
Rosa Clemp.
Yes. Number 3.
Yes. Oh.
Who is I think for the fast association for anybody who's looking to understand who she is, she's the inspiration for Frau Farbissina.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
I mean, like,
we need
Austin Powers is the shorthand though for a lot of these
Oh,
characters.
for sure.
The brilliance, or maybe brilliance in air quotes, of Austin Powers is, I think, how well it does parody a lot of these old spy films, especially the James Bond movies.
Absolutely. I mean, James Bond was asking for it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I mean, yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I mean, we see a lot of these big tropes kind of come into focus here in this movie. We see, some very good performances. I think, not to say there was short of that in Dr. No, but I think Sean Connery is kind of the standout in that movie. Here we actually see, I think, a few other people who are bringing a little bit extra.
Yes. Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I think Daniela Bianchi, who plays Tatiana, the Bond girl in this movie, I think she does a very nice job too.
Oh yeah. I said this to Molly that she's my favorite Bond girl.
Really?
Yeah. She's ready to be in The Birds. She seems like she just came right out of The Birds. Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds, and came right on set for this movie.
Is she in The Birds?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, I was like, she definitely does look like Tippi Hedren, but but I think it is something to be said though for the time for to have like a Russian Bond girl though too, and like how kind of edgy it is to have Bond getting mixed up with like it's almost like the Cold War, like two people coming together a little bit.
And it's a honeypot. It's a honeypot situation.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's supposed to fall in love, and of course James Bond pulls his trick. She falls in love with him.
Hey, shit happens, you know.
But yeah, I guess any other big things we want to discuss about?
Yeah, From Us with Love.
Yes, please share your thoughts, Tony.
Oh my goodness. So I absolutely love this one. I think we get the installation of Spectre. We actually get to see the Spectre organization, and we get to see how they run. It's you can't mess around. Can't mess around. You screw up, you're getting shoe knifed. I love having that.
Again, eccentric ways to assassinate
Hell
somebody.
yeah. Oh my god, the outfits in this were amazing. The gypsy scene. Can we get to the gypsy scene? The gypsy fight scene, and then Kareem Bey is my favorite. He's my favorite in this movie. He's your Bond buddy.
He's got the Sala vibes.
Yeah, a little bit for sure.
He does such a good job showing James Bond around. You get the periscope. This periscope up into the Russian base. What else?
I would say I think Robert Shaw is in like my top 3 of like henchies for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, he plays that so well. He is able to get out of James Bond's like he figured out James Bond. Mr. Shaw was was not being truthful, and he was still able to trick James Bond to drop his guard one more time to then pull out his own gun.
Yeah.
And knock James Bond out essentially.
Hell yeah.
Here was something I was thinking about too with this movie, and I think specifically with Grant, the character. Is this the first instance where we've encountered in a movie, or at least maybe the first popular reference of like Russian agents that speak like perfect like American accent English?
Absolutely.
Because that's such a trope. I feel like of like Black Widow, like in Marvel, right? Of like, oh, we're gonna have them watch Disney movies and they're gonna learn like perfect like English so that they can like perfectly assimilate. It's like the whole premise of The Americans, right? Like, with Kerry Russell and that one dude.
Yeah. Most Le Carre novels, or I'm thinking more the adaptations, like your Tinker Tailor Soldier Spies, got a lot of secret Russians.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's great because I don't think you really hear a lot of Grant talking in the film, and then pretty much the first time you hear him talk is after he knocks out Bond's assistants and takes on that American accent, and you're like, okay, we're in it. We're in it. We're in a situation where James is in trouble.
Yeah, because he kind of disarms him at first, right? Like, and you kind of know, like, because we established James Bond's not stupid, but you also kind of establish that, like, yeah, there are people out there who maybe can pull a fast one out, and he wants to sniff something out about him, and he's like, interesting. Like, he's like, I don't know if I have the right read on this guy.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And this is also the movie with the first hat toss onto the hat rack, I believe.
Second.
It's the second?
It's the second.
He does it?
He does it in the first one.
Oh, dang.
Oh.
He does in the first one. Yeah, we didn't even talk about Moneypenny.
No.
We haven't even brought Moneypenny into the mix.
We did it. Yeah. We introduced all the MI6 staples, right? We get Q. M was already introduced in Dr. No, and then Moneypenny, right? And the little flirtation that her and Bond will inevitably grow. And
But
It's like there. It's so present.
It's like the Frasier Roz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a 90s reference. I love that. Yeah.
It's a good way to put it, though. Again, these fast associations of like, here's what we're talking about here too. And it's hard to talk about some of these movies from a plot perspective because the plots are complicated, and they're intentionally complicated because he's constantly unraveling what they're up to until you figure it out, and it's like, oh right, they're like in the last movie, it's like they're trying to disrupt a shuttle launch. It's like, oh, okay. I wish somebody could just say that line. Like halfway through the movie, like the villains we can watch the villains talking about this and we can understand it, and then we the audience have that information, but we're trying to figure out. It's like Columbo, like watching him trying to figure out what's going on, right?
They sure talk a lot to James Bond and let him get out of the situations.
Holy
they put
shit.
him in. If we go back to Dr. No, our Bond girl is tied up to a ramp, which is slowly being filled with water. And by the time James gets there, it's barely to her ankle.
Yeah.
I did want to call out the music, though, again, because this is our first theme song for the movie with like the name in the song name.
Yes.
So From Russia with Love, and it was composed by Lionel Bart, who did the stage play Oliver, but then sung by Matt Monroe. Although originally they had wanted Frank Sinatra to sing it, and that kind of makes sense when you hear how the song
That would have been
goes.
Nice. That would have been nice.
From Russia with love, I fly to you, much wiser since my goodbye to you. I've traveled the world to learn I must return from Russia with love.
Just imagine, it's like a little Frankie, little old blue eyes. From Russia with love, them bastards.
From Russia with love, baby.
Oh, you guys have some great Franks. Excellent Franks.
But yeah, and it's a good tune. It's a good tune. And it's a tone setter. of just all the theme songs that come after it and how they always have to kind of like. I love a good movie that includes the title of the movie in the song theme song. And that's,
for sure.
That's a staple of the '80s, like all up and down. Other than Back to the Future, Back to the Future doesn't. Although then they have like, I want to go back in time. That's your boy Huey Lewis. You were trying to figure out.
Oh yeah, I was fucking up that.
There also seemed to be a thing with all three credits that they had to have seductive ladies.
Yes,
had to. This one, in fact, had the credits on the ladies.
Yes,
which I was like, well, good work.
Hey, if you're gonna want me to read, put it on some nice ladies. You know what I'm saying?
So this one, because I was trying to remember, and forgive me, I've seen these movies multiple times. I have not watched From Russia with Love in a while. This also had like women with like lights coming out across their bodies in the opening.
Oh yes, yeah. It was most of the credit that would come in. I think they just had a few body parts: chest, leg, arm. Titties, and it would just have the credits you would read on them. Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect
is all I have to say about that. That's all.
Primo.
No,
it's primo.
I love it. But this was a big financial success. Do you guys want to guess how much money this one made?
7. Wait, no, 7E.
17?
7D, because didn't you say that one was like 40 something?
Yeah, like 59.
59. I'm gonna guess like 75.
Ooh. I'll put up a solid 97.
This one made Inversion of You 79. It was close to $79 million on a $2 million budget.
That's big money.
Yodel.
I get to spin the wheel.
And no surprise, this was very well critically received.
Best picture of that year.
Hands down.
That's a great question. Were any James Bond movies ever nominated for
best song?
Yes.
Best original song is what they usually win.
Yeah, which I mean, did this one get the? Okay, so this one won a BAFTA for best British cinematography.
The most British cinematography.
And that was just when M was on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh, look at that British man. Oh, perfect. So financial success, right? We have From Russia with Love. Obviously, they can make a movie on a shoestring budget and build it into crazy amount of money. So let's read the budget for Goldfinger.
Oh no! What, they triple it, quadruple it?
What do you guys want to guess is the budget?
What was the last one?
2 million.
6.
15.
3.
Oh, okay. We're on track.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love how producers thought back then.
I love they're like,
It's
those first
conservative.
two were a smash. How about 3 million for this one instead of 2?
They're very conservative. I like it.
Which is like, I feel where it's starting to get into Sean Connery's, crawl a little bit at that point.
At this point he's pretty pissed. What is he making now? 55 million?
55,000.
Let me tell you guys a little bit about the development of Goldfinger. To keep us moving along here. So while From Russia with Love was in production, writer began working on a script for On Her Majesty's Secret Service to be intended as the next film in the series.
I do like some Your Majesty's Secret Service.
But with the release date set for September 1964, there was not enough time to prepare for location shooting in Switzerland, and that adaptation was put on hold. And with the court case still ongoing for Thunderball, they turned to Goldfinger as their third Bond film. Goldfinger had what was then considered a large budget of $3 million, the equivalent of both the budgets from the first 2 movies.
It's 3% of the current movie.
Yeah, I mean, considering how much money these movies made, I'd be telling these guys, get fucked. Like Jesus Christ. You're going to make that movie in opening week, or you make that money back in opening weekend.
Real.
Like, you could probably up it or double it. They chose Goldfinger with the North American cinema market in mind, as the previous films had been concentrated more in the Caribbean and Europe. So Terrence Young was brought back. He directed the previous 2. So I'm sorry, he was brought back from Russia with Love. Obviously, they loved what he did with the first one. he chose to film the amorous adventures of Moll Flanders instead, and after a pay dispute,
Ed Flanders' wife?
Yeah, is this
after a pay dispute that saw him denied a percentage of the film's profits, basically he backed out and said, "See you later. I'm going to do something different for a little more money." They turned instead to Guy Hamilton to direct. Hamilton, who had turned down directing on Dr. No, felt that he needed to make Bond less of a Superman by making the villain seem more powerful.
Interesting. I wouldn't say Goldfinger is more powerful.
No, but he has a very powerful ally, does he not?
Oh,
With,
random task.
random task. Hamilton actually knew Ian Fleming, though, as both were involved during intelligence matters in the Royal Navy during World War II. So he was pegged to take over. But yeah, so basically they started developing this movie on their $3 million budget and decided to really up the ante with the fight sequences. They really wanted to show Bond kind of like overmatched in a way. Because, I mean, which you kind of got a little bit with Grant, right?
Fair. Yes, yeah. Grant did have the one up on him.
But
for sure.
we definitely see Odd Job here as a very iconic henchman, if I will say. And I know a lot of people know him from GoldenEye, the game, but
Excellent caddy.
yeah. Oh, and
He'll hook it up.
but he doesn't say any word. I mean, another thing that probably doesn't age super well is an Asian man who doesn't say anything. But is great at fighting, very completely silent throughout the whole movie.
Better than casting Wiseman again.
Right.
True, at least they did get a appropriate race for him this time. So let's talk a little bit about Goldfinger. So what were your guys' overall thoughts on Goldfinger? Because I certainly have thoughts.
I see this as like the gold standard of the Connery movies and of the, I'd say, pre-Dalton post-era. You know what I'm saying? From Dalton on.
Beg your pardon.
Of all the... No. You know I love Dalton.
I know you love Dalton. So wait.
I'm saying of this type... I'm saying when you look at Roger Moore, Lazenby, and Connery... There is definitely a vibe of the 60s, 70s.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then there's, we're in the 80s now, baby. And I'm not talking about quality difference. I'm just saying, like, of this grouping, this is like, if I'm going to say, oh, if someone's like, I want to watch a James Bond movie, what should I pick up? It's going to be Goldfinger.
Yeah.
It has all the tropes you want.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the third film at this point, they've figured out how to package it for a home audience. Which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they figured out their heavy. They brought him in a lot earlier than you've seen previously.
Mm-hmm.
And man, did he have a lot of cockiness that you want out of your heavy.
Definitely.
I'll go so far as to say this. I mean, you mentioned gold standard of the Connery era, pre-Dalton. And listen, I like Timothy Dalton. We're going to litigate this on the Timothy Dalton episode.
Timothy Dalton's its own episode.
It is his own episode. I love Dalton, the actor. That's my same opinion about Connery. I don't know that he's a great Bond, but we can talk about those movies because they're very interesting when we get to that point. But, I mean, I'll go so far as to say I think Goldfinger is the gold standard of the entire franchise.
Yes.
And Daniel Craig did a lot of great things, and there's some great entries. Everybody has a great entry, I think.
Absolutely.
Maybe Roger Moore. We'll talk about that later. Maybe he didn't. But I do think you look at this movie, and you just mentioned it right there, right? There is everything you want in a James Bond movie in here. Interesting villains. A plot that you can actually kind of follow.
Yes, absolutely. They're going to blow up Fort Knox.
I mean, it's right. Or what is it like? Make it basically unusable, the gold in there?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
finally we get some America in this
Yeah.
piece of shit. You know what I'm saying?
America.
And we have to go to Fort Knox. We have to count the gold. I mean, is it all there? We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised Trump hasn't seen Goldfinger. That was there the whole time.
No, I mean, listen, there's the argument that somebody in that White House saw a Goldfinger and goes, hey, guys, you ever think about Fort Knox? And we got all our gold.
Got a lot of gold there.
God, it's a conversation starter. The stupidest thing. But go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, Ian Fleming's a real person. He is written based off of someone he knew, James Bond. Maybe this Goldfinger was real, and maybe he did screw up our gold.
Yeah, especially since like he wasn't like an active military person, but he worked as like part of like he was amidst World War II stuff.
Yes.
Like I think he was referred to as like a fixer, I guess, like a Michael Clayton sorts.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of great Ian Fleming stuff out there. Or are we talking about the James Bond?
No, I'm talking about Ian Fleming.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to watch a documentary about him and just to kind of get a sense for it.
It's going to be grainy. It's going to be a grainy video.
It is so fascinating, not to get off on any sort of tangent or anything, but just how World War II shaped so many stories, but specifically British authors, right? And just like, here you have Ian Fleming, who was like, yeah, I was in the war. I'm going to write about the exploits that I was involved in. And Tolkien's like, you think about how countries fight each other. What would that be like on a larger scale?
And Roald Dahl, who was a fan of a friend of Ian Fleming's, and Roald Dahl actually wrote one of these movies. I think he wrote You Only Live Twice.
Oh,
he wrote one of them. I know that.
Wow, that's a pull. If he did, I don't know that I know that.
I guarantee you wrote one. I don't know if it's that one. While you're looking that up, I will say, talking about connections, World War II, I'm sure you have it in our notes here. The villain, played by Kurt Frobe, has a very interesting World War II history. You know about him?
No.
You know about this? Hear about this? So Kurt Frobe plays Goldfinger, German guy, was in the Nazi party.
No.
Pre-World War II. He
got out.
He got out.
Good for him.
And this, around the time of Goldfinger coming out, was like known that he was at one point part of the Nazi party.
Wow.
And so Israel bans Goldfinger, the film. But later, a Jewish man comes out and says, this guy actually protected my family during the actual World War II and harbored Jews at the time and kept them safe during World War II. And he became a hero for Israel, and the film became one of the most popular films in Israel.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. I do remember hearing, that he was involved with the Nazis in some case, but I totally forgot he's like a Schindler type guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, now I want him to blow up our gold.
Incredible plot. But I mean, incredible performance though too. And I do think
He really does.
as good as Shaw is in From Russia with Love, as good as you have all these characters in these movies, there is something about the big boisterousness of Goldfinger that just it sticks with you when he talks, right? And no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
And it's completely dubbed. He's mouthing all his lines, and then like an English person went through and did that. And that's actually the case for most Bond girls up to a certain point. Most of them are VR'd and dubbed over.
Well, I think that's most films back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't even get into that, but that is the case with Ursula Andress because she is Dutch, I think.
Yeah.
And so she had a very thick accent. It's kind of like early Arnold before they realized it's actually kind of hilarious to hear this guy try and deliver lines. Like, but yeah, she was completely dubbed over. So yeah, that's definitely the case, which again, I think you did actually have a Russian actress. Oh, God, I said her name. It was like Daniela something, but I think, yeah.
Tatiana Romanova.
Yeah, again, probably somebody who needed a dub over because she's, probably not, English is not her first language, right? But yeah, I think Goldfinger it's an incredible film. It totally ups the ante. I mean, I understand people who think From Russia with Love is a better movie.
It's a great movie, but I would agree that Goldfinger does take that step forward.
Yeah.
I think From Russia with Love has better moments in my opinion, but I think as a final product, Goldfinger's better.
Yeah. I mean, we have the introduction of his Aston Martin, right?
Yeah.
His tricked out Aston Martin, nonetheless.
Yes, and it gets destroyed in that car chase scene.
Unfortunate.
And this is the seat ejector.
Yes.
Okay. Watching them all, it is kind of hard to like, which one was that? But
Yeah.
love the seat ejector.
Never touch the red button.
When I used to drive Lyft, I used to pretend I had a seat ejector for myself. Just send myself out of the car.
I'm out. I do. Oh man, I do love that they brought that back. Was it in Skyfall that he has the ejector seat again?
I feel like it might have been Spectre.
Yeah, where,
Okay,
where he
yes.
pulls out
Yeah.
the Aston Martin. It's like the classic one from the garage. But yeah, I mean, this is I think the first time we get like a gadget that people are like, oh, that's a gadget. Like,
Damn
he's
right.
got a damn car that has like guns in it, ejector seat, like. And again, I think a functioning car where they needed to actually install guns that could come out of the front of it.
Well, that's just. I mean, how much of the budget do you think the Aston Martin was?
I mean, probably
Another $1 million.
not an insignificant cost, right? But yeah, go ahead. What do you got to say?
No. I just wanted to say. I think they hit on all points. We got a cold open, a clean cold open. Remind me again what happened
In the cold open?
Yeah.
This is the one with the reflection in his eye, right?
He gets the reflection in his eye. He also comes in as a seagull. If
I
don't
thought that
recall.
was from Russia with Love. Is it Goldfinger?
Goldfinger.
I think it's
Okay.
Goldfinger, yeah.
I do like that's the
Where he's in the
fucking-
silo, right?
He blows. Yeah, that's right. He blows up some nitro canisters and lights a cigarette right as the explosion goes off.
Hell yeah.
Oh man, it's and then what does it go? What is it? He had what did he have? He had a cigarette, or the line is, "I have a slight inferiority complex." What did he have on him? But, fuck.
I'm waiting to see where
I
you're
know,
going with this. Yeah.
Man, that was a good line. I'm trying to remember what the hell he had. But let's move forward. No, it started with a cold open. You get your song Goldfinger, which is, I think it takes a step up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
From
that's
Rush with
like
Love.
one of the big songs, like top 3 of all timers of the Bond songs.
Shirley Bassey. Should we listen to a little bit of some of the music? I feel like we've been talking around the music. We should listen to a sampling
Yes.
of Goldfinger.
Goldfinger, he's the man with the Midas touch, a spider's touch, such a cold finger.
He's got the Midas touch, but he touched too much. Hey, go member.
Oh my god.
No, big bands. It
brass.
brings you in.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
I mean, it's in a pretty incredible thing, and again, a sequence where you have, isn't it like a woman completely covered in gold, or you have multiple women covered in gold, right? Yeah, I think a pretty incredible song. I did want to confirm before, Roald Dahl did indeed write "You Only Live Twice." So that was a great pull, Fred.
amazing. That's
And I'm pretty sure Ian Fleming wrote a screenplay of one of Roald Dahl's books.
Was it Willy Wonka and the Chocolate? Because that would be fun.
It was something minor, but I know that was like the kind of trade-off. They're like, say good boy, what if we traded projects for a bit?
But yeah, I think you had something that was definitely a game changer in terms of an opening theme. And it really gave, I think it went so well with like that opening where you have like the credits coming over, like the women that are just painted with gold, which I can't imagine that was very healthy for anybody back then, like, because they don't know what they know now, right? Like they might have
Well, you gotta, if you leave an area on the back
just a small patch.
unpainted, you'll be fine.
You'll be able to breathe.
So a fun fact about this, I said Shirley Bassey, or is it Bassey? Was the
like
singer of
Bassey.
the song. The track featured a young Jimmy Page who was doing
No
mini
way.
sessions at the time. So he is on guitar in that song.
Oh, yeah.
That's impressive.
I mean, yeah, only like one of the best guitarists of all time. Potentially. So yeah, that song reached 8th on the Billboard Hot 100, 21st in the UK charts. So it was a big deal. I mean, I think that was the first one that really permeated into the mainstream where people were like, this is a song that I could listen at home, get a vinyl of it. Yeah. So great opening sequence. Should we listen to the main James Bond theme as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't.
Do it.
Well, we'll give it a little flavor because we talked around it. It's credited to John Barry, but we know that it was not just him.
Moving around, doing my spice.
Something that is very you talked about it at the start of the podcast episode, Fred, just how James Bond is always like in its own era, but something about that theme song always kind of calls back to the 60s, right?
I was about to say it sounds like timeless.
Yeah.
It's-
Oh, you think so?
It-
Interesting.
It feels like, I mean, it leads that to the point where it is, you can have it in all generations.
Mhm.
But I get what you're saying when it comes to the tone, the sound.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they did a good job of making it just open.
Yeah, it still works.
Yeah. Because it has kind of that, I wouldn't go so far as to say like the Quincy Jones flavor, right? And not like Soul Bassino or anything like that. But it definitely is just something though when you hear that big band and swing kind of kick in, and then you just hear that little guitar like that, bum, ba-dum, dum, right? And it's just like this. It's something that is so elemental of the 60s. But again, I think to your point though too, it is timeless now because Bond has persevered for 50 years, right? Or are we on 60 years coming up here now? I mean, no, we've passed it.
We have passed it.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a mainstay that it really is something there. And I think but there is something to Goldfinger, right? And even hearing it at the Oscars, you kind of like, or no, they didn't play Goldfinger, did they?
No,
They should have.
they should have. They should have done a couple more songs. All Time High. Come on.
What is your favorite Bond theme?
For
each of you can answer
I
that.
don't know. It's Goldfinger's up there, but I feel like I have to say that I really like License to Kill.
Yeah, I mean, License to Kill is, I mean, the Wings, right?
No, that's
Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die. I will say Live and Let Die.
Yeah. I think that might be my answer too. I mean, and I completely respect everybody who picks like Diamonds Are Forever or Skyfall. I mean, they're great tunes. I don't know. I do have a lot of love for Goldfinger though.
It just hits you when she belts out Goldfinger.
Gladys Knight sings License to Kill.
Ah.
And of course, the Adele Skyfall is like that one cemented it high for me.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it's again, but how much does that song call back to something like this, right? Where it is just sort of like you have like what am I thinking? Like a diva who is just like belting it out, right? And really like bringing you into the story.
Yeah, for real. I mean, you said Skyfall. Yeah, I mean Skyfall. It feels, it's not the same song, but it's got that tone that you.
It feels inspired.
Yeah, I want someone to belt. I want a little pickup in the music. That's why I was a little off on like the Sam Smith, and didn't who's the lady who's like, I'm the bad guy. Didn't Billie Eilish?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't like how the songs never like brought it to like a nice pace, and it never was belty. And that's what I need from like, that's why I like the Gladys Knight. That's why I like the Goldfinger song.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think something that's good about a song like Goldfinger too is like, and I think you kind of bring it to that. It's like you have that sort of like that Goldfinger, and it sort of brings that, but then she kind of breaks it down. She's like, those golden words he pours in your ear, and it's sort of like, it kind of like lulls you in almost a sense of security.
Yes.
And then she's like, it's the kiss of death. And then you have those motifs from the James Bond theme where it's like you hear a little bit of that like in the background, and it just, I don't know. I mean, again, music is so important to this series. I don't think we remembered the series the same way, or it even perseveres as much as it did without epically great songs.
It's honestly up there for the thing that I'm looking forward to when there's a new Bond.
Oh, absolutely. You look forward to everything we talk about, with the cold open to the theme song to everything you know about the Bond tropes.
Well, and to tie it back to this, let's talk about the checklist now, right? Whenever there's a new Bond announced, what are the things people want to know? Who's going to be Bond, right? Mm-hmm. That's the first thing. Idris Elba, Henry Cavill, like, all the same bullshit over and over again. 2, who's doing the theme song?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Huge deal. 3, who's going to be the villain?
Yes.
Mm. And then somehow, like, the 10th or 11th thing, well, what's the story going to be?
Well, I mean, like I said, I grew up watching these movies. I didn't know what was going on.
But, like, isn't that
very easy to miss?
Yeah. Isn't that kind of what makes Goldfinger like almost an elemental movie in this series? And pardon the pun, because obviously gold and elemental.
Gold.
But, is that you have a movie that you don't necessarily need to care about the plot to enjoy it. There's so many great set pieces. There's so many great sequences. The car chase, like the multiple car chases, right? Like he's like following her on that highway and, because he's they're spying on him, right? And it's just like you're like, okay, so he's following somebody, but what's he doing? And you don't even fucking know, you don't care. He doesn't really even know what she's doing. You just know she's spying on him.
and more big scenes. The moving pool table that leads into the floor opening up, and you get to see Fort Knox itself.
Yes.
As he, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure they're all gangsters. All of those men.
I think that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, across the United States.
Mm-hmm. Elaborate death traps. The laser that's made of like gold or whatever. That's like purified gold. It's like
I misremember all the time how James Bond gets out of that, because I feel like that one is done across as like as a parody across like other shows and movies, where I always forget how he gets out of it.
It's Q's watch, dear boy.
No, it's him. It's just him saying, "Hey, you need me."
Yeah,
I really thought it was the watch.
I do always think about that too, because I confuse it with The Simpsons, with the parody. Where
they use the watch there.
No, Bond flips like a quarter and it like shoots the laser into 4 different directions and like melts his shackles, and then he comes out. Then Homer tackles.
Yes.
You know what? I know why I never remember.
What is it?
Because I'm so nervous. I'm covering my eyes the whole time. I'm worried about James.
James is going to lose his manhood.
What's my favorite piece?
But I mean, lest we forget though, too, right? The other piece that people ask with everyone, who's going to be the Bond girl? And in this one, we get our the best name for a Bond girl. It'll never be beaten.
I mean, should we all say it together?
Pussy galore. That sounded strange, all of us saying together, but it did feel good.
I kind of don't like that we did that, and I kind of
all
love
right, let's
that
back
we
up.
did that.
Let's cut that one. Let's cut that one completely.
No, we're not. Yeah, but you do have Honor Blackman as Pussy Galore,
which I thought, and maybe it's the 60s, but at the same time, I thought she was a lesbian in the movie.
Oh,
I thought she always was. I thought she was like a rival to James Bond's sexual mystique, and she was always able to push it away. And not saying that lesbians do that, but I'm just saying, like, I also thought she liked girls.
I get you.
Oh, so maybe, I just kind of think that she's kind of coded more bi, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could see how that gives that, but I think it's the fashion of the times, right? It's a lot of like, women wearing pants for not the first time, but certainly it's more prominent at the moment, like tight black pant or whatever, tight pants in general. And I think she's also kind of a stronger character, right? She's the one teaching these pilots how to run the mission, right? And like she's sort of like in charge of an operation here.
It's something that kind of continues and what they kind of move towards in Bond movies is like, okay, if we're going to have a lady in it that's a love interest, we're going to give her actually plot function.
Yes.
Right. And not just like you need him to fall in love with you.
We're not just gonna have a sex on a boat at the end of the movie.
Right.
Keeping the British end up.
But yeah, I mean, certainly, I think she is, a very great character. And she's in the Avengers TV show, not the Marvel's The Avengers. This is
And not the Ray Fiennes Uma Thurman movie.
but that is the remake of the show. Yes. So if you know that, is that Ray Fiennes in that one?
yes, it is.
Really?
Ray Fiennes, he becomes our new. He's
The new
He's
current
M, yeah.
He's the current M.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Is he? Will he still be M though?
That's a great
Didn't
question.
he sacrifice himself in some way? In
I thought
those
James Bond was the only one that died.
Well, he did that. Yeah, I thought there was a scene where he might have done a little sacrifice.
got himself
remember.
kicked
They
out.
started playing Creed.
Oh,
He's like, my sacrifice.
I thought they killed off of Felix Leiter in the new ones though, right? Didn't they?
Yes, we lost our Felix.
Yeah.
The in memoriam on our back half of this is going to be pretty tight. I
Yes.
think.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
it will be,
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
for sure. But yeah, so I think we have a lot of great new pieces, new elements that just become staples of Bond in this story. And yeah, little America. We're in America. They're in Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Finally.
But James Bond needed Kentucky, and Kentucky needed James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we mentioned though too, right? It's like then we have the staple henchman, it's Harold Sakata who's playing Odd Job, and then you just have, you have Felix Leiter back again. He's chilling. He's like, "Hey, you're in my territory now, there, Bondy boy. Come pick your ass up."
we also have the most memorable outfit that James Bond wears, and that is the powder blue onesie robe
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
that I have been trying to purchase off of Etsy for years now.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to purchase it's about $100. I'm pitching this Etsy.
I
later.
kind of went with like a little bit of a Bond shirt. It should be a lot. This outfit should be a lot tighter on me, but I thought I was going for like 60s, 70s Bond with this right here.
Fred is wearing a blue polo that has some very nice texture to it and a very fine pair of khaki pants, very reminiscent of the Daniel Craig wardrobe in the newer James Bond movies.
Yes.
It just needs to be so tight and like my pecs just popping.
My man can wear a good polo.
I'm
All of
jealous.
them can, I think.
They really can. They
Yeah.
really can. I mean, like, I don't think you can get the part. If you're not
It's
wearing
like the
that polo,
bat
right?
suit, how they bring out like the Kilmer bat suit. They bring out like the polo, like put this shit on.
Get out of here.
But yeah, I think there's a lot to like about this movie. And iconic moments in it. Just, like I mentioned, the laser of him on the table and he has to talk his way out as he's like strapped up. It's constantly parodied.
It's constantly parodied.
And then I don't know. I love the end where he's trying to defuse the bomb and then somebody just comes in and stops it. Of course, how much time is left? 007 seconds.
007.
Oh, so good.
I do love that scene so much because not just that, just the scene of where they're taking down Fort Knox in general, and how they again, if you have not seen the film in a long time, they knock out the entire area of Fort Knox with nerve gas, and if you recall, everyone had to drop to the floor, and it is quite a scene.
Yeah.
You had to see this by multiple individuals just dropping to the floor, all of them whom are trying to protect themselves as they're landing on the ground. And at the same time, we find out that they are all faking it.
Yeah. Everyone's in on it
Oh yeah.
because they switched out the nerve gas canisters. It's, yeah, I think there's so much you can say about this movie, but I think, that's kind of it. And again, henchman weird attributes. The man has a fucking razor blade in his bowler hat, like that he can. And we see a whole sequence where he cuts the head off of a statue. And that ends up being his demise. Like he keeps throwing it at Bond. Like it's almost kind of hilarious the fact that they do like fight a little bit, and then he's just walking around with him like trying to frisbee his pet.
Dude is so good at frisbee golf, though.
Yeah,
For real.
It cuts the goal in half every time, but he's so good.
he's great. He's a ringer, if you will.
And speaking of golf, he's an excellent caddy as well.
Right?
Yes, he
Yeah,
is.
like I said.
he is a great caddy.
He really knows how to cheat.
As does Goldfinger in his card game, right? And he's got his like the girl up in the hotel room that's giving him the tips on what the cards are until.
Honestly, that guy deserved to lose 10K to Goldfinger.
Yeah.
He didn't realize that big piece of equipment coming out of his ear was none other than a microphone.
But it was the 60s. Maybe he thought it was a hearing aid, right? But terrible way to go, though, too. Asphyxiation being covered in paint for that girl.
Yes.
Poor girl.
Jill Masterson.
Yes.
Jill Masterson.
Yeah. Both her and
First
her sister
American
died.
Bond girl?
I think so.
Yes.
I think you might be correct.
And shortest?
Yeah.
Are you talking about like height or screen time?
In screen time.
Yeah, we get her, and then we get her sister. What was it, like Tippy?
Tilly.
Yep. And
Jill and
he
Tilly.
also gets murdered.
Yeah.
Not by paint, but certainly in another bad way. But yeah, I think it's, and then we get Honor Blackman, who I believe is English. I mean, that's a real fucking English name, Honor Blackman. English actress, yes. She was born in Lewes, East Sussex, England. Died at 94 back in 2020. Long life. Pretty good.
Sean Connery died in 2020.
He did as well. Yeah, that was kind of the end of the Goldfinger era, as you will.
Yeah.
What do you guys think this movie made?
This one.
So I said 70 something. And it was actually like 77 or 79.
Yeah, so this was $3 million budget.
I think it's gonna make. I'm gonna do 83.
It's based on the ratios. I would say another 20 to 30 million. I think this breaks 100 million.
You're correct. It did.
Oh.
$125
Dang.
dollars. Wow. 1964.
Jeez,
That's a good day. That's a good week. That's a good run for a movie now.
they're adding cheese to that broccoli that day.
So Goldfinger premiered in London on September 1964. General release in the UK with the following day. Movie was very well critically received, and here's a fun little story. And is it Leicester Square?
That sounds. I'm not gonna try it.
Was packed with sightseers and fans, and police were unable to control the crowd. A set of glass doors to the cinema was accidentally broken at the premiere. Was shown 10 minutes late because of the confusion. So yeah, I mean, this movie did a lot of. I mean, it was critically well received and pretty much launched the Bond franchise into what we know today. And gentlemen, we are running a little bit long on this episode.
What does that mean?
Oh, what?
I think what I have to say is that Bond will be back.
Huh?
In part 2.
Dun dun dun.
Fred, are you ready for us to do our first 2-part podcast episode?
Definitely. I'm excited for that.
That's going to be good. So keep an eye out. We will put a pin in this for now, and we will return next time. Tony, Fred, and Tom will return with Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, and Diamonds Are Forever.
Can we do some quick plugs?
You sure can.
Saturday, the 15th of March, I'll be performing with Fractal. I don't know if we'll be dropping before that, but I'm just throwing that out there in the chat. And then on Friday, the 21st of March, I'll be performing in a large ensemble of 2-people improv scenes called Blind Date, all at the Interchange Theater. You can check that out at theinterchangetheater.com.
Excellent.
Stein, the improv group, is going to be performing at improv or at the Interchange Theater
March 14th.
Okay.
I believe 7 o'clock. Be there and be scared.
One of the great fun groups of Milwaukee.
You were a part of that at one point.
It was a
You
pleasure.
joined
I
us,
was
yeah.
very happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, that was a great show.
It's Stein Improv. And you guys are on Instagram, Facebook?
We are on Instagram, Facebook, all your social media needs.
Excellent. So look for them on there. Tony, great part of that group. Great show. Definitely anyone should check it out. I'll just plug the podcast here. You can, if you enjoyed what you listened to today, please remember to rate and review this episode. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube. Join our Patreon today just for $1 a month. You can get an exclusive content. That's one bonus episode per month. Fred, I believe our Patreon next time is going to be the best TV of 2024.
Ooh, I wonder how that's going to go.
I wonder, too, what we ended up highlighting is a little encore from our best movies of 2024 episode.
I think I'm going to start buying.
Oh, please do. Just for $1 a month. It's a bargain, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Special thanks to Nick Spitza and Mike Schwantz for opening and closing theme songs. And stay tuned for next time for part 2 of Sean Connery, James Bond. We'll see you guys then.
Goodbye.